Well, Bill, here we are. We've had our first interview this morning with Xavier, which was really interesting, learning about farming and cattle and chickens.
Yeah, and eggs, I guess, which is his go. But I'll declare now that I'm actually working with Xavier. We didn't really want to discuss that in the interview. But interesting story, he went to his local MP looking for help. And his local MP put him onto me, and now I'm mentoring him in his business, and that's exactly the sort of thing that you and I do, of course. That's
it's good, and he's a nice young man too. Yeah. So this is Bill's idea. Bill said to me, he keeps being asked, who's the other person on the end of the microphone, and I get asked, what's Bill's background, what's his story? So we thought we might interview each other. And Bill's decided he'll start with me, and then down the track we'll interview Bill. So I'll hand back to you, Bill. Who's today's guest?
Thank you, Mark. Well, it's I think this is a bit of fun, and I think it's worthwhile people knowing a bit more about us because we're actually gaining quite a bit of momentum, and particularly in the Geelong region.
Yep.
And we're building, and deliberately, we're building our own reputation, of course, because what is our business? Our business is a loose arrangement between Mark and I, and we are business advisors and sometimes mentors to business owners. Yep. And we deal in the I guess the market of the 5 million to 50 million size family business or privately owned business. But the way we started was I actually had an idea during COVID because, like everyone else, I was sitting around wondering what the hell I was going to do when all my clients left because they couldn't go anywhere. And I did a trial podcast, and that trial podcast was just by myself. And I went to a professional studio in Melbourne and did the podcast and played it back and thought, oh, my God, that is terrible. Right, and so I thought about it, and Mark and I have come across each other around Geelong, and we've sit on a couple of groups together, business groups and volunteer groups.
Judging together?
Judging the Small Business Awards. So I went to Mark and said, listen, I think that probably the two of us might be a good combination to do this podcast because we bounce off each other and we're opposites. And we're opposites in lots of things, and yet we're similar in other things. You know, we're opposite politically, I think, and all sorts of little different quirky things.
And he's good looking and I'm ugly, so yeah, all that.
Right. Well, you've got the beard and I haven't, although I have lost 8 kilos recently, so that might help. So anyway, we'll start off. So Mark Edmonds, I know you were born in the UK, I believe.
Yep, born in Birmingham.
Tell me about that.
So born in Birmingham, and we actually lived in Scotland for a number of years, and I then went to school outside London, a place called Chingford, and then I remember my parents saying we're off to India. So at the age of about 6, I think 5 or 6, found ourselves on a 707, Boeing 707. I remember the plane flying an enormous distance to India to start a life there because my dad was an engineer and that's where his job took him.
Good. So where was most of your secondary school?
India.
Right. So tell me a bit about the experience of going to secondary school in India.
So India, we went to, I can't think of the name of the school now, but it was a Jesuit brothers run school. I know there was about 1,300 students there, and there were 3 Anglo-Saxon Europeans. There was myself and my younger brother and an English girl, and we were it. And when we first got there, wherever we walked, we had about 20 or 30 kids following us because we were this interesting, red-faced, because it was so hot, kids. But great experience. Loved the school, had made lots of good friends at the school. And we left there when it was about 11 or 12, a bit older, 13. And my parents sent us to school in England for a year. And then from there, we all headed out to Australia. We had a family conference, a discussion on where do we go next in the world. We couldn't live in England. It was too cold. We were used to the heat. So I remember my dad saying we've got offers in Korea or South Korea, America, and this place called Australia. And we went and met the Australian High Commissioner in London to have a chat, who's told me not to worry about national service because it'll be over soon, which I had no idea what that was about. And we headed off to Australia and got out here and went to school in Sydney at Carlingford.
Now, just going back to the school in India, was it a dual language school?
Predominantly the predominance was English. The lessons were in English, but they also taught Hindi, which is the national language. And my brother, for a number of lessons, did Sanskrit, which is ancient Hindi, for want of a better description. But we both ended up speaking fluent Hindi because you had to.
So looking back on that diverse education, what are the benefits do you think you've gained out of it later on in life?
That's a good question, Bill. I would say I'm blind to colour, if that makes sense. In growing up in a school where I was the minority and you just got on with it and enjoyed it, my mum tells the story that when we moved to England and we went to school in England for a year, I kept talking about the guy that I was mates with at school and brought him round one day. And I was into model trains in those days, and so was he. And he was actually a kid whose parents came from Barbados, but he was English. He was born in England. And I remember my mum saying to me, "You didn't tell us he was black." I was oblivious to that. He was just another kid that I knew. So I've learnt it's about the person and how they are and how they act, not about the colour of their skin and
what a valuable
religion.
lesson that is in life, isn't it? All right, so you've arrived in Sydney, you've finished off your schooling, and then you went off to Sydney University. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, I was heading to Sydney to, my aim was to become a school teacher. So my girlfriend at the time, long gone, was also going to be a school teacher, and she went off to Macquarie Uni, I went off to Sydney Uni. My mum worked with handicapped children. And so I had a leaning to, because I'd worked in that area on school holidays, and so I was leaning into that's where I'd like to go to educate. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a teacher. And younger folk listening might hate this, but I was actually paid to go to uni because the government at the time,
I remember those days,
paid us I can't think of the princely sum. It's probably about $50 a week to go along and cover your books and. So that was quite handy. So that's why a lot of people went into education, because it was to get teachers and you were paid to go. But I got through the degree and I had to do my dip ed to then complete being a teacher. And I started to talk to people that were ahead of me that had gone into teaching and how much they hated it. And I thought, I'm not sure if I want to do another year at uni. So I applied for a cadetship, for want of a better term, or a graduate entry at Target Australia. And the rest is history.
Well, that's right, and it's through Target that you end up in Geelong, of course. But what were, besides trying to study at uni, what were your other activities?
I had my first job at the time was pumping petrol at a local Shell service station, which I really enjoyed. In fact, that's probably why I got a little bit into retailing, because my grandfather ran his own shop, and that was always been in the back of my head that he did that, and I enjoyed when we used to visit there. But when I was running the service station, I would get bored of a night sitting there waiting for someone to come in, so I'd relay the whole shop and realign all the products and lay them out better, and the owner would come in the next day and say, "Mark was on duty last night, wasn't he?" But and that was during the years when we had petrol shortages. And I can remember working with two of us working at the service station and a queue of 100 cars up the road, and you'd walk down the queue with a sign that said "last car," and everybody looking at you, and you'd put it on the back of what you deemed to be the last car and note their colour and their number plate, because by the time that car drove in, they'd all moved the last car sign down another 30 cars. But you had to go home. You'd been there for 12 hours and you needed to go home and shut the service station.
Well, funny that we've had a reincarnation of that recently with COVID. Remember the queues outside the testing stations?
Unbelievable.
They used to do that. And they had one in Latrobe Terrace here, in Pakenham Street, Geelong. And the guy used to walk up and put the cone on the road.
The cone on the road.
So you got into Target and that brought you to Geelong. But you had a career at Target that took you from Target, Kmart and Fossey's and that. So tell us a bit about the roles there.
So I really enjoyed my time at Target, and I've made lots of good friends that are still friends today from the Target days. Started off in the stores in Eastwood in Sydney, which has now been shut and gone, and just worked my way through the stores side of things. Ended up as the state sales manager in New South Wales. That then led me to the national sales manager, which led to me relocating to Geelong, which Wendy, my wife, I rang her from Geelong and said, listen, I've been offered a job in Geelong. And she said, because I was down here for a meeting, she said, well, when do you have to decide? I said, I've got till next week. So she said, all right, well, let's chat about it when you get home. And I hung up and I thought, nah. And I walked into the office of the guy who'd been talking to me and said, yes, I'll take it. Hopped on the plane, came home and said, we're moving. I did that because I was afraid I'd get home and I
talked out of it?
Well, not talked out of it. Wendy would never do that, but I would start to get cold feet. So therefore I took it. And then I've had a great...
Fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown. And I've had a great career with Target. Have done everything from running their property and development side to running their visual merchandising to running the buying or the non-apparel side of the buying. And that then led to a great relationship with the then MD, Larry Davis. And he shifted to Kmart and he asked me if I'd go up to Kmart, and there was a restructure happening at Target. So I thought, yep, I'll go. And had a good couple of years at Target, at Kmart. In my Target years, I'd also run Fossey's, which then became Target Country under me, which was great fun. That was took me all over Australia. In fact, I think I've been to every town in Australia that has a population over 5,000 people, but that's another story. And then I decided one day when I drove up the Geelong Road to Kmart at Taronga, I can't do this anymore. This is 2 hours the traffic was easy, 2 hours up, 2 hours back. And I just said to them, when you're ready to get rid of me, I'm ready to go. So they gave me a redundancy and I left because that was as Wesfarmers swooped in and took over Coles Mine.
Well, funny enough, I was driving, is it Separation Street yesterday, where that Target headquarters were.
Oh, yep.
And boy, a lot of people used to be employed there and they're no longer there now. They're in Williams Landing. But let's jump forward because you have established yourself in this region and in Geelong, and you are well known and well respected, and you sit on it. You over the last, I guess, 5-6 years, you've had some various board positions, particularly as a volunteer and in the charity side of things. But before we get on to that, you, as I know it, you were the CEO at Fags Mitre 10, which is a very large business, well-known business in Geelong. You were the interim CEO at the South Melbourne Market. You did some work with Bowen Timber, and around all of that, you've also been consulting and mentoring to private business owners. But I think probably the most high profile and probably one of the most important things that you've done is that you sit on the board of the Geelong Authority. Just a quick explanation to people listening. What is the Geelong Authority?
So the Geelong Authority is an advisory board to the Minister for Planning, and any building within the constraints of the Geelong CBD that's over 5,000 square metres or 5 stories. The Minister for Planning is the approval authority, and we make representation to the Minister on whether we agree or disagree with that building application, planning application.
Oh, do you have to walk around the street with the looking one eye behind
No.
with the developers and the property guys after you?
No, it's a bigger brief than that too, because we also have MULAP, the development of MULAP sits under
that's
us.
important.
And we also work with the City of Geelong and the federal government through the Revitalising Central Geelong Partnership, which is where City Deal money that people would know about was put in. So things like the convention centre that started, the works in the Green Spine, all that comes in under our sort of remit, and it's a really good organisation. It's doing a lot of good. We're very passionate. The group of us, chaired by Diana Taylor, who's well known when we interviewed Diana, actually.
That's right.
We're passionate about Geelong and making sure we leave a legacy that's a good legacy, and it's good. It's good fun.
Good. I think one of the culminations in recent times has been the start of the convention centre, which is really important. But now, on a changing tactic again, is that you've got quite a varied board career, and you're a fellow of the Australian Institute of Company Directors, but you've chaired the Geelong Chamber of Commerce board as well, which and the chamber now is revitalising itself. I know that, but you've been heavily involved with some not-for-profits, particularly with the Water Coastal Board, which is sort of down the Great Ocean Road from here to Warrnambool or further, I think.
So my first committee member board role was with Barwon Coast, and that was literally, I saw an ad in the paper. We were living in Ocean Grove, and I thought I need to get a little bit more involved with what's going on in where I live, and so I put my hand up. I realised very quickly that it was well-meaning people sitting around, but the understanding of governance and so on. So that led me very quickly to go and do the AICD Company Directors course. And then having that under my belt, that led me to look at working with the committee on how we should improve. And it's a state government appointment. I ended up being on that committee for, I think, nearly 12 years and chair for 5 or 6. And again, it was absolutely fantastic. Loved it. But there was a point where I realised, how long have I been doing this? Time for somebody else. And so I resigned and moved on.
Heard those lessons, particularly recently in politics.
And that led to the Western Coastal Board, which is the one you were talking about,
That's right.
which is that down the coast.
And also around about the same time or during that same period, the Barwon Legal Service, you were chair of that?
So, again, I just asked to come onto the board by a friend of mine saying we'd like some help with our governance. And before I knew it, I ended up being the last person standing and ended up as chair of Barwon Community Legal Service, a brilliant organisation, providing free legal service basically to anyone, but predominantly for people that are low socioeconomic backgrounds, and do a poultice of work about family violence, elder abuse, etc., and a great team of people.
Good. And then that led into your most recent appointment, which is Benefit Geelong.
Yes, so I've done a couple of other little committee roles, and then Benefit Geelong popped up through my work with Ocean Grove Connected Communities, and that's good. That's only been going just over a year. It's the Bendigo Bank's community giving aspect. Benefit Geelong works off money that people tag on their account saying they want to support a charity, and then the bank makes a small contribution on money that's deposited, and it allowed us, I think we gave away about 120,000 in the last year, so it's good.
Good. Yeah, in addition, you and I for 13 years have sat in a private group where there's 12 or 13 of us who are directors of companies, and we use that breakfast meeting to share issues about being members of boards, I think, which is important. But then you took the real big leap. Well, you, at the same time, Wendy was running a franchise down in Warren Pond Shopping Centre, but you ventured into the Ocean Grove Chalet. A quick synopsis.
So when I stepped out of Target, Wendy wanted to do something, and we said, let's buy a Donut King together. So the aim was we would do it together. But I hadn't been there that long, and I ended up going and working at Fags and running the Fags group for a while.
Or did you get the sack?
Sorry?
You probably got the sack,
I probably. And so Wendy ran the Donut King. But through working at Fags led me to meet Mark LeMaitre from LeMaitre Builders. And long story short, we ended up working together to build a motel in Ocean Grove, which we ran for just on 5 years and then sold it. Great learning, getting into the whole tourism accommodation industry, great network of people, and really enjoyable. But we dealt with 2 years of COVID in that, and that was a big learning too. But yeah, good
But it
experience.
wasn't just your little country motel. You built brand new, modern, state-of-the-art.
Brand new,
Yeah.
4-story,
How many rooms?
15 rooms.
Yeah.
Brilliant place. But it's still there, obviously. We sold it, and I walk past it every day, and it's still bubbling along, which is great.
Which brings us now to September, or it's nearly October, 2023. What are you doing now?
Still doing business mentoring. I find I spend a lot of time talking to people and helping rather than looking at it as an income stream. My wife has a saying as I walk out the door, is that paid or unpaid, the trip today?
She's been talking to my wife.
But look, I'd rather help and give back than necessarily charge. But then I've got a few people that I do
Can
charge.
I just stop you there for a minute? Because you and I are in a little advisory business together, and we do charge.
We do
I
charge.
just want to make sure that's clear.
But yeah, look, I love sort of talking to people and trying to help them. I think having a mentor is really important to a business, and it's good to be able to just talk to someone. You can't tell people what to do, but you can be a sounding board and give them the opportunity to bounce things off you, and you ask questions and they reach the conclusion they need to reach. And I love that. I think it's fantastic.
Well, and previously we're both involved in the Geelong Chamber mentoring program, and you and I are re-establishing a mentoring program for small business owners, and I think it's really important. And I often look back on my own business years ago and think, I was probably too stubborn. I should have had a board of advisors for my business.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. And you're currently, and I was with you yesterday and 12 or so other people, did the final judging of the Geelong Business Excellence Awards. What's your observation of the businesses that you've judged out of all those entries?
The thing that struck me is there are businesses that you probably go past every day that you really don't think much of because you don't know them. And then when you go in to interview the owners and look at their business and read their application, they're superb. They're fantastic. I was very lucky to, in fact, the judges yesterday said, who did I pay to get? But I went to Splatters Cheese, 18th Amendment Bar, and Mav's Greek restaurant, and
who were all finalists, by the way.
Yeah, who are great businesses, really great businesses, but passionate about what they do, I think some of the businesses they're brilliant. All of the businesses that we saw are great. Some are in their infancy, and they'll become great. But there are so many that, as a group, we just didn't know. And then suddenly you realise there's some really good businesses in Little Geelong that are going across the world, and we don't.
We've only got one more day of judging to go, and then we'll work out the finalists, and it'll be a big night when they have that award
Absolutely.
night down at the Geelong Football. Is it the Geelong Football Club?
Football Club,
yeah. So, yes, I think entering a business awards is extremely important. Okay, Mark, I know that you've picked up recently some interesting contracts in advising people about their business. So what's the best way to get in touch with you? I know one way I'll put in first is we've got a website called smeadvisory.com.au, and you'll find Mark's details on the front page of that.
Yep.
And your LinkedIn profile, there's a connection.
And LinkedIn's the best way, I think, these days. I mean, that's where my email is sitting. That's where a message to me and I'll respond to. And I do get queries through there and I do respond to. So,
all right. And the final thing is, unfortunately, our football team
didn't
make the finals. You and I and our wives have seats at the Cat Stadium. In fact, we're about 20 rows, I think, behind yours. And it's the last part of the season was a bit of a disappointment, but we'll be back.
Yeah,
just
well,
like the rest of Geelong.
I've decided my daughter's in Brisbane, so I'm going to support Brisbane, because being a Geelong supporter, there is no way I can support Collingwood.
That's
so,
right. And you've got a son in Perth.
A son in Perth and another son in Geelong. So.
That's right. Well, thanks, Mark. It's been interesting.
Yeah, good chat. Thank you, Bill.
To talk, and I guess we'll reverse it at some time in the future.
We will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.